All right, so just hit with a bombshell. Ezekiel Elliott will be suspended for the first 6 games of the season. Obviously this has been something that they've been kind of putting on us for a while. They've been telling us about a possible suspension, to get us ready for the suspension. Um, you can tell by Zeke's body language in practice and stuff like that it doesn't really look like he's all there. He's thinking about, I'm probably going to miss the first couple of games of the season at least. They do have 3 days to appeal. I think the Cowboys will appeal. It's just kind of normal protocol to go ahead and to appeal something like this. It'll just kind of prolong, help Cowboys fans think maybe he'll be suspended, maybe he won't be. But he's probably going to be suspended the 6 games. If he appeals it, he may get it dropped back down to 4, maybe even 2. But so if you've already had your draft and you've drafted him high, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? You're not getting a but this is also a reason why you don't draft before the preseason, why you don't draft super early is because injuries do happen, suspensions do happen, and you have to prepare for them. So now, big deals with the Zeke thing fantasy wise. He's a top 3 back. I have him slated just behind David Johnson. I have him slated just behind, um, what's his name? Le'Veon Bell. It's a toss up if you want to put Antonio Brown first, if you want to put Zeke there. But he was really probably my third guy. Obviously, top third running back on the list. And to me, I think he's still a first round pick. I think his production that he's going to have when he comes back week 7, I think will be good. Now, well, 6 weeks is a lot of weeks. I don't know if you can draft him first round and survive those first 6 weeks. Um, Without having a top back like that, with what basically wasting your first round pick on a guy that's basically, in a sense, look at it as like he's got an injury till week 7. So the whole thing with Zeke is how far will he fall now? The thing is, I'm from Texas, and people that I'll be playing with in fantasy leagues are going to go for Zeke a little bit early. They're going to be like, "Oh, I really want Zeke. I really didn't want to go top 3 for Zeke though." So now, hopefully he drops. Hopefully he drops to a point where I can pick him up. So it's going to be really compelling to see, where he starts to go in drafts. To see on mock drafts where Zeke starts to go. But I would say, I would still say, in my league, I think someone will go for him, maybe even early first round. And then, I was thinking I might go for him if I have a late first round pick. Go for him my first pick, pick up my quarterback my second round, and then survive on the waiver wire for for the first 6 weeks of the season. That's honestly what I'm thinking about doing. As if I want to draft Zeke, that's the kind of mindset you need to have. You need to have enough confidence in your waiver wire game to get it done those first 6 weeks. To me, I'm gonna at this point. I had already said last year I had Zeke. I traded for Zeke about halfway through the season. I gave up. I took him. I got Zeke and I got Greg Olson on a bye week. They were both on their bye weeks. I gave up Allen Robinson. I gave up C.J. Anderson. I gave up somebody else. What's his name? Marvin Jones. I traded for Marvin Jones a couple weeks before, so I was doing some nickel and diamond, and then I got Zeke and I got Greg Olson both on a bye week. So that week was really tough to prepare for because I didn't have a starting tight end, I didn't have a starting running back, and I just gave up 2 wide receivers and my other top running back. Luckily, C.J. Anderson gets hurt. Allen Robinson never really panned out. And Marvin Jones had like 1 or 2 good weeks early in the year, and then he kind of was pretty Marvin Jones for the rest of the year. Um, so and Zeke won a lot of games for me last year. A lot of people were pissed off that I was able to get Zeke because there's other people that were close to getting Zeke trade wise, and I kind of came in there and snagged them, and they didn't really like that. But it is what it is. I liked having Zeke on my team last year, but I had already said kind of last year I was like, I don't want to rely on Zeke again. Like I want to go find new players to rely on. There's definitely going to be a target on his head for the way he played last year. And I've always been like I'd rather have Le'Veon Bell and I'd rather have David Johnson. To me, this honestly drops him below LaShawn McCoy. I'd rather have LaShawn McCoy with the 6 game suspension. I look at things as like fantasy output throughout the year. I look at now that he's missing 6 games. Yeah, if he was playing the 6 more games that he was getting to play, that'd be one thing. But we're talking about LaShawn McCoy is going to play 6 more games than him. Jordan Howard is going to play 6 more games than him. I'm even going to say Melvin Gordon will have a better year than him. I'm not as high on Melvin Gordon, but he's someone on the top running backs list. Leonard Fournette is going to be a guy that you might want to draft a little higher. Lamar Miller. You know, Jay Ajayi. I don't know if these guys. I don't know where the fuck Devontae Foreman is. Or Devontae Freeman. I would like Devontae Freeman. Um, before I want him to Marco Murray, this really drops him down on draft boards. If you can get a couple, good another good plan. If you can get a couple good wide receivers, you can fill up your running back positions, and then you go for him like after you filled up those two running back positions. That's a point where you could keep him on your bench. You could have a couple of shit guys in there, maybe one good guy, one shit guy. And then with the hopes that okay, Zeke's gonna come back eventually. That's another plan that you can have for your fantasy wise. So, it's real up in the air. We'll see what happens. It's real compelling. He's been a Hulk all off season. He's been doing stupid shit all off season. It's finally going to catch up to you eventually. If you think you're a beast and you realize that you're just not a beast, it just happens. So and another thing I just want to talk about, let's talk about these first 6 games that he's missing for the Cowboys. Now, I've already slated the Cowboys as 9-7, I think, on the year. I had them going 9-7. I had them going 10-6 on the year. But what I will say is in their first, okay, so like one thing to also note, Game 6 that he will miss is a bye week. So, well, he says he's suspended 6 games. So maybe he's out until October 22nd. He might miss the first 7 weeks of the season because they have a bye week. Let's see here. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Week 6 they have a bye week. So I don't necessarily know if week 6 is going to count as a week. I don't really think it will because it's 6 games. It's not 6 weeks. So he's going to miss. He's not going to come back until October 29th. So you miss Zeke for an entire 2 months of the season. If you go ahead and draft him early, or if so you're going to have to prepare for the first 2 months of your season without Zeke. I think he drops dramatically down draft boards. And then Cowboys wise, okay, I have them beating the Giants first game of the year at home. That can go the other way now. For sure can go the other way now. At Denver, this is a game I thought, okay, they can win. This could potentially go the other way. At Arizona, a toss-up game on a Monday night. This is one that can go the other way. Rams, I think they still beat the Rams at home. I already have them slated to lose the game on October 8th against Green Bay. I think that's for sure another loss. I mean, it's at home, not in Green Bay. And then they have the bye week and then at San Francisco. I mean, we're looking at potentially rolling in to week 8 at Washington. And beforehand, I had them slated to be 5-1 at this point going into Washington. I've got them slated honestly to be 1, 2. I think they could be potentially 3-3 at that point at week 8. And, at Washington, that's a huge game. Obviously I think I have them slated to lose that game in Washington, if they're starting 5-1. But now, 3-3, that could be a winnable game. Then Kansas City at home, that's a toss up. I have them winning it, but that's a toss up. At Atlanta, that's another tough game. Eagles at home, Chargers at home, Redskins at home. That's a big time period between November 19th and November 30th. All those games are going to be huge. And then you go into the Giants, you go into Oakland, and then you have Seattle and you have at Philadelphia. The season is not over at all by saying, Zeke's missing the first 7 weeks of the season. But it's vital to see how they perform. Are they going to be 5-1? Are they going to be 3-3? Are they going to be 2-4? It's gonna really be, and they do play a pretty tough schedule throughout the year. At Giants, at Oakland, at Philly, late in the year in December, and then a home game against Seattle. That's their last month of the season. That's not going to be fun if you're rolling into those last 4 games with a 500 record. That's not gonna be a fun way to end. And I have them losing 3 of those 4 games in December, going 10-6 on the year. So, if I'm looking at this schedule now, I have them projected at 10-6. I'm just gonna kind of leave it that way because that's kind of how I have it. I have the Giants. This is the thing. I have the Giants as being really not that great this year. I have the Giants being 7-9. I don't really think the Giants are gonna make a whole lot of noise this year. A lot of people projected them to do good, but I'm not really that high on them. I love Odell Beckham obviously, and I like the addition of Brandon Marshall, and their defense is pretty good. But I'm just not sold on Eli Manning. I don't like Eli Manning a whole lot. But I mean, turn around that game against Dallas. Um, you know, if you can beat, I have them basically splitting with Dallas, so I do have them winning one and losing one. So, but if they can turn that around and win two, um, if that's going to really like jump in our. I mean the NFC East is already really close. Like I mean, I've got the Eagles at 6-10. They win a couple games against 2 games against the Cowboys. That'll make their record better. I've got the Redskins at 9-7. If they win one of those games against the Cowboys, or both of those games against the Cowboys, I mean, then they could be right there. It basically puts, to me, it puts the Cowboys on red alert in the sense of, instead of being able to breeze through the season and know you'll probably make the playoffs, you were 13-3 last year. You can play worse than you played last year, and you'll probably still make the playoffs. And you're still probably the best team in the division. You have the best offensive line. You have a really good young quarterback, really good young running back, and then your defense has always been suspect. But we'll see what happens with the defense. They played pretty good last year. I liked how they played last year. But yeah, I mean, 10-6. I don't see them going 10-6 anymore. I'm looking at an 8-8, 9-7 season. You know what I mean? I mean, they've got a tough schedule, and to think losing Zeke those first 6 games, and I think they'll probably be pretty good towards the end of the year. They're going to be playing with a lot of fire, but at the same time, they play Kansas City, at Atlanta, at the Giants, at Oakland, at Philly. Home game against Seattle, home game against the Chiefs. They got home games, 3 home games in a row: Eagles, Chargers, Redskins, which I think will really honestly be kind of tough on them. But at the same time, those are they just puts a lot of pressure on those 3 games. Like those 3 games are games where I think if the 10-6 season that I'm talking about having, you could have dropped one of those. Maybe you won one somewhere else that you weren't supposed to win. But to put all that pressure on them now to think, okay, you've got these last 9 games, and like you're rolling into it 3-3. And yeah, I mean, I know the Redskins aren't going to be like 5-0 or 6-0. I know the Giants probably won't be 5-0. You're not going to be having to chase a whole lot, but at the same time, you don't want to get yourself in a hole. And so then, like also fantasy wise, let's talk about running back wise. So for the first 6 weeks of the seasons, or the first 6 weeks of the season, or 7 weeks, potentially you're gonna have a running back for the Cowboys that you can steal a little bit later in a draft. You're not gonna have to get him right at the first of it, like you had to get Zeke, but you're going to be able to use him for the first 6 weeks. It's kind of like D'Angelo Williams last year. I didn't draft D'Angelo Williams, or I drafted him as my last pick, and he was like my best player the first 2 weeks of the season. He got me a win week 1, and he played pretty good the two next weeks until Le'Veon came back. Alfred Morris. Alfred Morris to me climbs up draft boards. He played good in the first preseason game. I really think he'd probably be slated as the number 1 back. He'll probably be sharing time with Darren McFadden. We'll see which one of these guys gets the end zone touches. I think Alfred Morris will probably get the red zone touches. Both of these guys are former starting running backs. They're a little bit older now. I would say, Alfred Morris is a little bit younger. Did like some of the moves that I saw in the first preseason game from Alfred Morris. And that, at the same time, they may be adding another guy. This might be a time for the Cowboys to add D'Angelo Williams, an older back that's, said that he's wanted to play. And he's only named a couple of teams that he doesn't want to play for. And then also, you could see the Cowboys trading for another player. This could be a time where you bring in Adrian Peterson. I know Adrian Peterson just signed a new contract with the Saints, but to think that, Adrian Peterson's, competing in a backfield with Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara, I think there's another back over there. I really think if I'm Adrian Peterson, I notice I don't really want to compete for this big type of job. I'd rather go to Dallas, play the first couple of weeks of the season, and then, and then give it up to Zeke or whatever. But that's just a pipe dream. That's just something that I just thought up that I thought I might say. That's probably not something that's going to happen. But but like I said, the running back position is somebody that you're going to be able to get points from in the Cowboys offense. So let's find out who the starters are going to be. If Darren McFadden and Morris are sharing time, let's figure out which one of the guys is going to get the end zone touches. And once like I think that's going to be a good fantasy guy for the first couple weeks of the season. Let's say you go for Zeke round one, or not Zeke round one. I think you can get Zeke like round three. But I live in Texas, and like the people that I play with, some of them are Cowboys fans, and I think some of them will go for him early. Um, First, and then if but okay, let's say you have a first, let's say you have a top three pick still, and you were thinking about using that third pick for Zeke. You go for Antonio. Okay, so Le'Veon's off the board, David Johnson's off the board. You go for Antonio Brown, so you get a good wide receiver. So round two, you go for your back. You go for Devontae Freeman. And then round three, let's say you go for your quarterback. Round four, Zeke's still there. You go for Zeke. You get Zeke round four, and then about around 5 or 6, not maybe not this early, but you start to get ready. You start to get your picks ready for your backup for Zeke. You know what I mean? Your Alfred Morris, if you want to use him for the first 6 of the weeks of the season, knowing he's going to fill Zeke's spot. If you want to go get another running back that you have your eyes on, that's there. But you need to get two good guys that you know are going to be able to compete for you while Zeke's out. And the biggest key is, if you are planning to do this, can you even get Zeke in the long term? Can you get Zeke later in the year, or like can you get Zeke later in the draft, I should say? Because if you can't get him later in the draft, this kind of plan is done. And another plan to go with, if you want to go ahead and lock up your quarterback position and you have a late first round pick, go for the quarterback then. And then second round, you'll have an early second round. Get that's a stud wide receiver or stud running back that you want. And then soon after that, you're going to have to wait a bunch of draft picks. Maybe at that point, go for Zeke, go for that other back. You're going to have to survive on the waiver wire. Understand that, and let me let you know, you can survive on the waiver wire if you do want to draft Zeke. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit tougher. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit of brain power to really think and figure out, okay, which one of these guys is going to compete for me these first couple weeks. And it's one of those things that's going to change. Let's say you've got a good quarterback, you've got a good running back, you got Freeman as your first running back. You've got some all right running back. Not a everyday. Let's say you have Jeremy Hill as your second running back. Now I don't like that at all, because he's going to be sharing time. And then you have Zeke sitting there for 6-7 weeks. So let's say you have Jeremy Hill, and he's your guy, and the rest of your team's solid. This is the one position you're like, I really don't like Jeremy Hill at my running back 2 position. That's when the waiver wire comes in. You're going to be watching that waiver wire week 1. You're going to be and you're going to pick up a guy. You're going to pick up that top guy. You'll pick him up. You start him. You'll see how he does. If he doesn't, let's say an injury happens, you can go get the backup of the guy that just got injured. There's going to be opportunities for you to fix the Zeke mess up and be able to compete without having Zeke in your lineup. So don't be afraid. I'm getting to the point where I'm saying, don't be afraid to draft Zeke. If you want to draft Zeke, just be smart about it. Don't go for him too early. Don't go for him too late. Start doing some mock drafts, start figuring out where people are still taking them, and go from there. That's what I would have to say about that. Check out Panarin Sports. I'll leave the link in my description.